Hello, hello, Keto Bikini Land. Welcome back to another client success interview with me, your girl Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro, and I have a athlete with us today, mom turned athlete. Jennifer Butler is here with me today. Wow, we have so much to cover for you today. I cannot wait to get into it. First, thank you, Jennifer, for joining me. Let's get started by sharing a little bit with the group who you are. Who is Jennifer Butler?
Okay, I am super excited to be here, and I'm just a regular lady like anybody else. I am a retired music teacher, taught piano for 31 years, retired last year so we could travel a little bit more. And I've got two kids, young adult kids. One is in college and working, and have a daughter who is graduated from college, and then my husband is in IT, and we all work from home. There's a lot of at home here, and so yeah, I mean that's just about it. It's not anything too exciting. I'm just a regular person living life.
Where in the world do you live?
I live in Orlando, Florida. Born and raised. I'm a native. Yeah.
Florida. Eventually, we will be down there with you somewhere. Probably not far from Orlando.
Yeah,
Love it
yeah,
down
love it
there.
though. Me too.
All right, so let's get into your journey because it's been quite a journey. Um, you had quite a journey before we met, so I want to kind of start there. What started you on your low carb, ketogenic journey, and what did that look like in the beginning years?
Okay. Well, it started with a crisis that I hit in 2018. I was 200 pounds. And it's funny because people are like, they don't believe it. I don't even really, if you look at my before pictures, I was very obese. And so getting there was just something that had happened over 30 years of failing at diets. I exercised through that in the beginning of that journey, just because that's all I knew. You're supposed to eat less, move more, and then you go through these phases of, well, that didn't work, and so you give up for a while, and then you try the next best thing, and so um, I think the hardest part for me wasn't even being obese. I mean, that was bad enough in and of itself, and I had a lot of chronic pain and health problems, but it just failing at something continually just does something to you. So as a young person, I was always like very goal oriented, and I liked sports as a kid, and that kind of thing. But it wasn't like I spent time in the gym. I just played a few sports in school and that was it, and went to college and, whatever. But when I started gaining weight, and then after I had kids, the weight didn't come off, and I just got heavier and heavier. And it really just made me feel very bad about myself and not being able to figure it out. And even consulting other trainers and, all of the information I was taking in that you think is working and going to be the right thing. And it didn't. You just think, well, what's wrong with me? I just must be, stupid. I can't figure this out or whatever. And you're like, screw it. I'm just going to eat the stuff because, what else is there? So I had really kind of given up, but in 2018, I was facing prediabetes and I had to make a change because I did not want to be diabetic. So that's really what I just made a couple rules for myself because I'm like, all right, it's not rocket science that I'm going to have to give up some of the crap I was eating. And it wasn't a lot, but I mean, it was bad enough when you're insulin resistant and, whatever. And so that's kind of what led that journey. I found the ketogenic diet along the way. So in 2020, I I did a keto, sort of internet keto, did a lot of fasting, and I found that process to be really difficult, and it actually kind of turned into just another diet of starving and then eating and then trying to figure it out and counting macros and doing became really complicated. So when I found a more proper way to do it, found Dr. Westman, and I really needed a restricted carb diet for where I was. And that really benefited me. And I was able to quickly lose the weight, which shocked me. I was like, holy cow, in 5 months, this is all I needed. Why didn't I know this?
Way to do this? What?
I'm like, why didn't I know this 30 years ago? And so I had to go through like some emotions of that, like being mad about it, and I didn't expect things like that to bubble up. So anyway, so that kind of came pretty quick. So this was, 2021, and lost the weight and started exercising because I realized how out of shape I was. I mean, I have had reconstructive surgery on both of my shoulders. I'm hypermobile. I've had a lot of different surgeries, but I had a lot of weakness. And so once my inflammation was gone and the pain was gone in my body, just moving at, I'm 56, I'm like, if it's this hard to get down and get up and carrying my trash can and vacuum and all of this, what's it going to be like when I'm 80? So that was kind of my motivation for, let me just, try to do some sit-ups. So here I am, like on the floor, like pulling my pant leg up. I couldn't even do one. I was like, man alive, this is bad. So, but I'm like, I have to start somewhere. And so really just, I knew absolutely nothing about exercising. I just knew I needed a better function in my life. And then somewhere along the way, as I began to improve and I started getting stronger, I took up kickboxing, had been rowing, and I started to feel some, really good improvement in my body. And, so by the time I met you on the low carb cruise, I thought, wow, this is great. I reached my goals because I was kind of skinny fat, to be honest, which pissed me off because I'm like, all right, what do you mean? I'm a size 6, but I'm still like 35% fat.
You
And
had
I
how much weight at that point in time?
sorry,
You had lost how much weight at that point in time?
I think I'd lost about 60 pounds, something like that, 62 pounds
Well,
from the
I really
beginning.
want to highlight this because so many of the women, by the time they get to me, this is where they are. They've lost a considerable amount of weight and they did not prioritize exercise throughout the process. So they get to this weight loss and maybe they got to their goal weight, and yet their body hasn't changed. It just got smaller.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
My gosh, I have all this body fat and sometimes sagging skin and flappy, just kind of the fat got looser on your body, but it still feels
Right.
there. You're just not as solid.
Yeah.
So here you are, and you're like, what? I've done all of this, and yet I don't
Right.
feel as fit as I thought I would be when I got here.
Yeah, because you're just thinking, oh, if I could just get the weight off. And so, yeah, at first it started with just, I want better function. But then I started, seeing people that were physically fit. I'm like, but I want to do that. And I want to look like that. And I don't know how. How do they do it? And it isn't that it's complicated really, but there's nuances to it. And there's consistency and work and nutrition and things that I know now that I didn't. And so, yeah, my journey changed when I decided to get a vision of what I wanted my physique to look like after I realized, all right, I'm getting stronger and whatever, but I want to try and just see, is this possible? Can I do that? And so what started out as like just a vision of wanting to change my body developed into, holy crap, I'm look how strong I'm becoming. And so that really then became the driving force, not necessarily everybody wants to look great in their bathing suit, but that was like, I don't care about that. What I'm able to do now, and protecting that as I age really is the goal. And the benefit is, you feel good in your skin. And that's and the process behind it has been absolutely fascinating to me.
All right, let's get into some of that. The nuts and bolts of the fascinations, the aha moments, and the learning and the growth, because that's where I live. That's my jam. So, since the cruise, you and I connected, and you got into my community and Coach Bronson's community, and really like soaked everything up like a sponge and started applying things on your own and doing things on your own. We didn't start working together until just 3 months ago, 4 months, maybe about 4 months now ago. And it was right after, or a little bit farther after, you joined my Grace and Grind challenge in January, which was not a body composition challenge. It was not workouts. It was not nutrition. You were doing that elsewhere and already working on that. But the Grace and Grind was about the mental, the emotional, the recovery, the self-care. And then you won that challenge. So let's talk a little bit about that, about what that 40 days was like for you, and then kind of how that led to us working together.
Okay. Yeah, the challenge really came at a good time for me. I had embarked on my first little challenge in 2021. Like I joined a gym, didn't really know what I was doing, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I mean, I met my goals. My goal was 25% body fat from where I was,
Which
worked
is
out a lot.
huge. You were 35, you said, or more. You're probably more when you
Okay,
quit.
I was, by the time I had my first little aha moment, was after DEXA scan. I was 34%, and I was not working out a lot. I had just been rowing a little bit and walking, but that's when I took up kickboxing. So kickboxing and just that extra activity and the calisthenics that we did in that over a summer got me down to about, I think, 30%, maybe 32, somewhere around there. And so then I realized, well, I'd like to put on a little muscle. And so I joined a gym, and our gym in Orlando is massive. I just wandered around a lot.
It's
I was so
gorgeous.
intimidated.
I
I
cannot
was
wait.
so scared.
I need to visit you down there because it is such a beautiful gym.
Yeah, but I'm like, I don't know what to do with any of this. And but I joined this challenge, and I figured, all right, well, there's pictures on the thing, and I'll just go through, and doing something's better than nothing, and I got to just start somewhere. So that kind of that process, that um, first challenge, uh, got me down to 25% from around 30, and put on some muscle. But I had a lot of learning in there, and I didn't have enough recovery. I overtrained, and coming into the summer after that, uh, I began to realize I had to slow down. I had to take more time for recovery, and then our daughter has some chronic illnesses, and that just stopped my world. And I didn't take into account, you know, going from somebody who is doing a lot of activity, exercising and all of this and eating whatever, and then your world stops. And fat comes on really fast if you're not careful. And so that messed with me a little bit. I was like, okay, I see what's happening. I've got to figure this out. I know what to do, up to that point. And so I had to kind of rein it in, irregardless of what was happening in my life, irregardless of how I felt emotionally, irregardless of the demands. There is no crisis, no problem, no anything in my life that is worth my own life and
Mhm.
and protecting my own health. That is priority, because I am no good to anyone else if I don't protect that. And I work too damn hard to just chuck it all because of this situation or that situation. So I had to have a family meeting. We had to make some adjustments so that I could get back in the gym, even when I didn't feel like it. Sometimes just sat and cried before I went in, and then got a little iron therapy, and it came out. So for me, coming to the Grace and Grind challenge, in the middle of that, the support and just the hands-on day to day of realizing that this is what this is about, and being part of the community, because I'd been following your masterclasses, and I've been reading, and I'm like pulling from all of these resources, but starting to walk through the process of it just began to solidify all this information, and then the light bulbs started going off. You know what I mean? It's like when you finally get the recipe and the cake comes together and you're like, okay, I think I'm getting it now. But I really needed the support of, because you can't grind all the time. And knowing that you do have to give yourself some grace and taking some time to deal with whatever needs to be dealt with, which is what I did when our daughter got really sick, doesn't mean that everything I worked for up to that point is going to stop.
You learn to
But
put
if you see,
yourself first, put your oxygen mask on first.
yeah. And that's really hard coming from where I came from, of those 30 years of failure. Because you see the scales start coming, you're like, oh no, here it comes again. Oh no, what am I doing wrong? And I'm like, I'm not going back down into those mentalities of telling myself those wrong things. And so you have to check your thoughts. You talk about that. It's so important. So the mindsets, going through that challenge and showing up and plugging in and just doing the work. It just really, it really, I just needed it. And it was fantastic. It was a great experience. And it gave me a taste of what it was like to work with you. And so, when I won, I was like, well, yeah, I could take the cash money, but I'm going to invest this in myself, because I've been waiting to work with you for a while.
Yeah, so you flipped that winning, and instead of just taking the equivalent of 1 month coaching with me and running with your cash, you turned it into 3, and we actually got to work together for 3 months, which is amazing because you had come out of this intense challenge you were doing on the nutrition and training side, and this was more of a traditional approach to, let's say, really a bodybuilding challenge. It was led by a bodybuilding coach and a bodybuilding physique team. So you came out of that and you were already on low calories.
Yeah.
You were doing a lot of cardio. You'd hit your
Yes.
goal. You'd gotten to a place you'd never been before. Your physique
And
was
I did it. Yeah, I did it much better too. And I have to say that doing that was an important process for me. And I actually really loved it. I really loved it. Like all of the the low calories and all, right? That process was important because it showed me everything that you'd been talking about and things that I had been learning in your master classes, right? And it was also important to note that that was my second challenge. The first challenge I did it on my own. I overtrained, gained 10 pounds, and I had to lose the same damn 10 pounds
all over again.
over again. But I knew what it was going to take, but this time I hired a coach. And this is, I guess, an important message that if I could give to people, is that if you have the opportunity, work with a coach, because it really changed everything. And so I went through all of that. And but I'm like, well, now what?
Now,
Because
how do
I
I
tried
maintain?
yeah, because I tried reversing on my own and did all of that, and it just was really not successful. And then I had to stop altogether just because of what was happening in my life. And so that was really why I was so thankful for being able to work with you. It just came right at the perfect time, because I'm like, okay, I
Yeah,
need
we were
some
able to
help doing this.
dive in and do. So what we focused on during our time together, different from a lot of these other interviews I've had, is that we did your reverse diet. We brought you out of the caloric deficit and into your maintenance phase, where now your focus is on building, which has been a real mental challenge. I always tell people the reverse dieting phase is more of a mental challenge than a dieting phase. When we're trying to get
Yes, it is.
that off, there's like this exciting carrot at the end for us. And when we're doing a reverse diet, it's like, oh, the carrot is just not gaining fat. Okay.
Right.
doesn't sound as sexy, right? So tell me a little bit about, I'd love to hear a little bit because you had some challenges throughout this. You were cruising. I mean, you did not have the standard reverse diet experience. So let's talk a little bit about, tell me a little bit about the challenges you overcame and the aha moments you had throughout this process that we did together.
Oh, well, the challenges, I was not sure what to expect, like with the reverse diet. And I think if I was doing it on my own, I probably would have been like way cautious, like with my calories, just because of being too fear driven and whatever. And so I can't tell you like what it means when you've got someone in your corner and when you've got that support and you've got somebody that kind of knows and guiding you, you can relax a little bit because you're like, okay, I know Coach Natalie's got my back and, whatever. But then I have all these cruises that we had planned because that was part of like our goal as I retired and whatever, and then taking care of my daughter. There was a lot of stress and preparation for that. But, it's hard when you're trying to reverse out and you're traveling. And so some of the challenges were how my body was responding to the inflammation and to the extra water, or you think you're uh, counting everything right and whatever, and then you come back and the scale is telling you something and you're trying not to freak out because I mean, really,
Yeah.
if I think about, I did a cut, and of course I had that little weight that I gained prior, and then before that I did some challenges. I was cutting. Before that I was in a keto diet. Before that I was 30 years dieting. I've done nothing but diet. Done nothing but diet. So now I'm like, okay, now wait a minute. Now you're telling me I got to eat more and I'm not going to diet, but don't get fat. It's like,
Yeah, cut
okay,
your cardio down.
I'm like,
More or less, the
do
exact
all of the
opposite.
reverse.
The exact
And I
opposite
think
of
that's,
what you've been told this whole time.
yeah. So, and dialing down the activity, because I'm a mover and a shaker. Like I like to move, I like to do stuff, I like to be active, I like every day. And for a long time, that's been my mentality. Just do a little something more than what you did the day before. That's what helped me get into shape. That's what helped me build some muscles. But that's also what drove a lot of my lack of recovery, doing too much. So finding that balance. And so now having to dial that back down, the challenge was, how is this going to go? And how is my body going to respond? That was the big challenge. And so the aha part of all of it was actually just seeing this process and allowing the process to unfold and trust my coach, trust myself, trust the process, uh, and realize that nothing is beyond your control. You
Hmm.
know, so if it's not where you want it to be, well, then do something else, do something about it. And if you don't know, well, then figure it out or talk to your coach. So the guidance there was very beneficial because like the times that I would feel the extra water, right? And I measure, because you can see it on the scale. It never occurred to me, okay, well, maybe the extra inflammation may be in my waist. And then I remember I'm like freaking out, and you're like, it's okay. You feel everything when you're this lean. So I think having you there because you've been through this and you're so real and authentic. I do appreciate that about you because you've been there. You've been through so much of all of this. So I don't feel like you know what's going on and you identify with all of us. And so it helped me not freak out because I knew what to expect. And then I began to see patterns. And so the aha of all of this is, I got this. And if things aren't where I want them to be, well, then I'm just going to dial it in another way. And also to just relax. I'm cruising. It's
Yes.
okay. And so taking moments to allow myself freedom because I had been so restrictive for so long.
Mhm.
And so letting go of all of that and realizing, oh, this was huge for me. because being goal oriented, I'm like already looking for the next thing, right? Okay, I'm going to build and I'm going to do this and here's my next goal. And you're like, no, wait a minute. Why don't you just take a minute and realize like what you've done? You can just take a minute and just like live. And I guess I never really thought about doing that. And I just appreciated that, to just pause and go, yeah, this is something to celebrate and to be proud of. And I don't have to run past that so fast. So that was another aha moment for
I
me, is that,
that I remember telling you, wait a minute, you've accomplished a major goal. Live in this. And that
yeah,
so many people, don't even know what maintenance looks like, right? And then they're afraid of maintenance because I know how to diet, I don't know how to maintain. And ultimately, I think what I kept reflecting back to in those midpoint, those check-ins in the middle of our time together was maintenance is life.
yeah,
You learning to live life and living life here and knowing that you can trust yourself. And I think let's get into your wins, because I think that was your biggest win of all. Is I always talk about being the CEO of your body and the CEO of your journey. And somebody may hear that and say, what does that even mean? I think you are a definition of what it means. And I think really what it means is learning to trust yourself, that
yeah,
I know how to do this, and letting go of the reins a little bit in terms of being measuring, tracking, weighing, and being exact with everything every day. I cannot do that. And I can still maintain my results because I know what to do and I trust myself.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So
I think the biggest, if I had to just pick one defining word for all of it, for me, is confidence, because that's something that I have not had a lot of in my life, not a lot of self-confidence. And when you know how to do something, you feel confident in that thing. And if you work a job that you've been doing for 31 years, you could do it in your sleep. It's so automatic. And so, this has been trying to lose weight and then trying to get in shape and then trying to do all these things has just been like this cloud that I just got sick of thinking about all the time. And so yeah, so not having to think about that anymore um, was such a blessing. That I had been very restrictive with food. I was very restrictive with carbohydrates and restrictive with uh, if going out, or if there was a surprise, with that came about and you were invited somewhere. This was early on in my journey, because I was just so afraid of so many things, because I didn't want to be fat again. Fear just drove so much of my mentality. And so as I went through this process and got to where I am now, because I understand, you can have knowledge about something, you can have a lot of knowledge, but if you don't understand something, I mean, that's powerful when you finally understand
it
how to
clicked.
do it
It clicked.
and what it means. Then you're like, okay, I got this. And so that to me that was a really big win. And it created so much freedom uh, with food and with lifestyle, and not being as restrictive, and being okay with the ebbs and flows of life, because I had made mistakes, like even with the 10 pounds that I gained. I was very happy I didn't beat myself up about that, and I reined it in and had to like reassess and then figure out, why did I gain the weight back? Well, oh yeah, because I'm here, and I'm here with my activity. And so, but had that happened to me prior, in a lot of failure mindsets, and if I didn't have that understanding and that experience and all of that knowledge, it probably would have gone a different direction, back to
Absolutely.
my other giving up phase. Well, this doesn't work, see? And then I'd be right back where I started. I mean, it just wasn't going to do that anymore. And so now, to even be that what's so beautiful about this is the self-growth. If you just never stop learning and you never stop growing, you are just limitless with what you can do. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You know, I'm going to be 60 in a handful of years, and it just doesn't even matter. I never thought when I finally, like in those first 5 months, had my first goal, I just want to be in a size 6 pair of pants. That was like my biggest goal. That's all I wanted. And then I got there and I'm like, oh, well, now what? And then you start to do a little thing, then you're like, oh, I have a little muscle. Well, that's kind of fun. And then all of a sudden, then you realize, oh, well, now what else can I do? And that just builds this like fire inside of you, right? And then falling in love with bodybuilding and looking at people that do this now that I have this understanding is just blows my mind, the physique and the possibilities. But more than anything else is and to be able to help somebody else too, because of where I've been, because I know the struggle and I understand how freaking hard it is. And I am not anybody special. I'm not just a human being like anybody else. I went through menopause and did all of this. So don't let them tell you, oh, you can't do this in menopause. Yes, you can.
Thank you. It's still the same principles still apply. The basics are the biggest chunk of the puzzle. We can look at supplements, we can look at hormones, we can look at therapies if and when we need to go that route. But the basics are going to get you 80% there. And you have nailed those basics. And you are showing that you can do this. You can maintain, you have your guardrails, you know when to rein it in, you know exactly which levers to pull and the variables. You're no longer afraid of carbs. Hello, can we talk about that? Like you have learned
that was huge
about fuel calories and okay, maybe I want a little bit more carbs right now. And if I do that, that means I have to rein in my fats. And I know the importance of not going too low on fat. So I know about how to balance and this is what, when you talk about, I'm sure people watching may have a question about the nuts and bolts of this when you talk about understanding, but this is what we mean when we say you're more than just learning, you're understanding the learning and the knowledge that you've gained, and you have this level of understanding of how it all fits together. And so you don't have to freak out about anything anymore because you take a moment and you say, wait a minute, I know how this is working. I know how that's working.
Yeah.
And I
think
know
that
the
was
scale is up, and I know that it's not that I put body fat on,
right,
etc.
right. You know, doing all of that, keeping track of all of that, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, don't do that, you know, and if you don't like to do that, fine. You know, if you don't like to weigh and you don't like to measure and you don't like to keep track, that to me was the best tool ever. Like having data, because I began to see the pattern of my own personal body after I had a workout or after I kickboxed, if I ate something or traveled, you know, I began to, I'd come back and sometimes be 5 pounds heavier. But I'm like, I know that I've been on this cruise and I know that I've been traveling and I know that a lot of this is in 2-3 days, it comes right back down. I began to see patterns in all of that. So it takes out, you know, then freaking out's just optional. You don't have to freak out. And so, but having that, and even last year, going through that cut in this other challenge, I did not have the option of manipulating my own macros
So you were
because it was set. And I think, yeah, I was like, this is what we're going to do. Well, I could have just like ignored, you know, but that's disrespectful to your coach, right? And that's not why I hired him. But with you and coming with what we're doing, you allowed me a fair amount of flexibility, which I really appreciate, because then I was able to really, I really dialed this in to figure some things out and realize, all right, I'm going to have a really high energy day today. And I need to have this many carbs to feel optimal. But tomorrow is going to be a recovery day and I'm not going to do anything. So I'm going to have a ribeye. And when I began to see these fluctuations and make choices, I'm like, this is living. This is living because I unexpectedly had my meal planned, and then we were invited to a very fancy steakhouse with our friends, and I knew that there was going to be a lot of really good decadent food, steaks, and all of this. And so I'm like, well, that was not in the plan, the caloric plan, for what I had planned for the day. But tomorrow is a different day. And so you just make adjustments. And that's what, to me, maintaining is about.
Understanding the trade-offs. Understanding the trade-offs, exactly that. And, also you get to celebrate the fact that you can do this now. You did what you needed
Yeah.
to do, right? You reversed insulin resistance and prediabetes, and you don't have to worry about that anymore. And now you know how everything plays in. You can handle a different level of carbs that you could back then. And if you were in that situation now, you would understand the mechanisms enough to know that you don't have that flexibility when you are looking at
Right.
metabolic syndrome, right? So sometimes we have to
Right.
decide those emotions and what we want to do because it might taste good right now. And so even now, right? You're not eating cake every day. When you're eating carbs, you're choosing fruits and vegetables and
Right. It's whole foods. It's whole healthy foods. Yeah. I don't eat junk.
I want to make it clear for
I don't
people.
ever.
You're not eating and you're not even doing like oatmeal for breakfast and rice cakes with peanut
No.
butter. You're not doing the bodybuilder carb diet either. You are eating the nutrient dense whole food.
Raspberries, strawberries, romaine lettuce, cherry tomatoes. These are my carbohydrates that I enjoy,
And
you
this
know,
is the beauty
but
of
it,
what happens when you make yourself fit and healthy overall, that you then get this opportunity for balance. There are people out there who want to do carnivore or ketovore for the rest of their lives, and there are other people who don't. But either way, the path to freedom is getting fit as well as nutritionally healthy. It's not,
well, and
it's not all about the weight loss.
no, and you want things to be sustainable. And if I have to follow a way of eating that makes me sick, that's not sustainable. And if I'm following a protocol that I hate, that's also sustainable. And so if I have done nothing else through this whole journey, I had to restrict things for a little while. I had a lot of energy on my body already. I did not need carbohydrates. And so, yeah. And then once I got leaner, it was a little bit scary for me to reintroduce some things to see how I was going to do more mentally than anything else. And but now to have the freedom to choose and to do it in a more calculating way so that I feel optimal, because there was a time I wasn't feeling so great. I was kind of still being really strict, and I'm like, okay, I have to pay attention to my body and whatever. So yeah, it's just been really beautiful, the whole process. And now building is a whole new phase for me of learning and with exercising and just seeing how much muscle I can now put on.
I love it. So yeah, what's next for you? This next phase for you, you have graduated. You're going to hang around in the membership community for a little bit, but your biggest shift now is releasing the control of tracking and your biometrics and your food and your training and all of that so closely, and getting into maintenance life with a focus on building. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that for you and what you're looking forward to, and yeah, just kind of what you see in the next 3 to 6 months for yourself.
Well, I don't, it's like everything else. I don't really know what to expect with this phase because I've
Never
tried
done
to do
it
this a few
before.
times. Well, yeah, I mean, I've had some scans done before, like when I've done these little challenges like a few years ago, and I'm like, okay, I lost muscle when I did that. So I really didn't know what I was doing, but because I was dieting, whatever. So this now I know so much better. And I really want to focus on my workouts and my recovery. So for me, my goal is to keep my nutrition appropriate, but just be consistent in the gym and focus on that intensity so that I'm sending a right message to my body to grow. Like this is what I'm learning now, which is a whole new level. Like, you can go in all day long and do all these reps and whatever, but where is the growth? And so that's going to be sort of my measure over, I guess, the coming months, where I'm starting and what it's going to look like at the end. I'm not really sure as far as how much muscle I can put on. I think it depends on my workouts. And so I love the workouts that you've sent me, because I was doing different body parts right prior to this. And so just doing 2 days a week for me has been really good, because I do still have the kickboxing that I like to keep up with in between all of that. And so, yeah, I think my ultimate goal, Natalie, is that, I don't want to say that, well, I'll never get on stage, because you should say never. I don't know if I would ever do that, but I want to spend a good while really building, so that I do want to do a cut sometime in the future and really just push my body in to see what I can do. It doesn't matter how old, it doesn't matter what anybody else has done. I just want to see, so that this time next year, I'm going to have a different physique than I do now.
Yeah,
That's my goal.
this is
that
the
every
long
year,
game. And I love to say
yeah,
that bodybuilding is a long game sport. Whether you ever do it competitively or not, anybody who's getting in the gym, working on building muscle, increasing strength, increasing performance, and changing your body composition is a bodybuilder. So I can't wait to see bodybuilder Jennifer next year. Not can change in a
yeah,
year. So I
yeah.
think the biggest takeaway message to the ladies, especially whether you've already lost weight, whether you have a lot of weight to lose, whether you're skinny fat, build muscle. It is the organ of longevity. It will take you into a healthier, optimal, later life. And it is the key to changing the shape of your body, changing what your body's capable of doing, more than just your size. So thank you, Jennifer, for being with us today. I'm so grateful to have you. Real quick, drop the name of your blog, because Jennifer has a blog where she has shared some really profound thoughts along her journey, and I know you'll continue. So please share that.
Yeah, it's a journeybyjennifer.com.
A Journey by Jennifer, and the same thing on Instagram. So you can check her
Yep.
out there, follow along
Yep.
with her
I
journey.
have YouTube too. If anybody doesn't want to read a bunch of stuff, you can go out and look at that.
And the slideshows and the videos of your journey are really powerful. So I know that'll be inspirational to the ladies as well. So thanks again. You can also find Jennifer in my community at Keto Bikini Secrets on Facebook. So come hang out with us there and continue to follow along and see where she ends up next year. Thanks again, Jen.
Thanks, Natalie. Bye, everybody.